pretty safe to say. God give it, God take it away. It's the worldwide American way. I'm living
Going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm coming at you with something a little bit new. While I was away on vacation, I kind of had the idea to bring people sample deck lists, kind of like how Bushiroad does it, except I was going to expand it to more decks that could be made from set 13 with the new stuff coming out. And I just thought it'd be a good way to help people out, because I know people might be looking into the clan, not knowing exactly which way they want to go with the different decks that are out there, and it kind of just gives them an avenue to peer into the different decks that could be made, and then they can decide which way they want to go themselves. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through the deck relatively quickly, whichever deck I'm talking about that day, and then I'm just going to give maybe 2 or 3 different ways you can tweak the deck for the future after you playtest it a little bit, after you get a feel for it, if you want to change the direction a little bit of how you want to go about it. So the deck I was going to bring to you today is the updated Crazy 8 deck with the new stuff from the set. My pride and joy deck, my favorite spike deck ever as at the current moment. And yeah, let's go ahead and hop into it. And like I said, I want to keep these relatively short, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how wordy I get, but I want to try to keep it pretty short. So let's go ahead and hop into it. And as you can see from the deck here, our starter is going to be Mecha Trainer, either 1, 2, or 3. And you do this because you can search out your heal triggers, and it just gives you great flexibility throughout the course of the game. 4, Silence Joker, because I find the unflip to be very important throughout the course of the game. Even though Lindsay, the new heal trigger, can give you a counter charge, having that main phase counter charge is definitely very useful, especially if you have to use a couple Mecha Trainers. 8, Draw, just to help you dig for pieces. And you have 4, Schemer, just because just feeds the soul and boosts up your units to help out for hitting over an 11k Vanguard or something like that. As for the grade 1s, we have 4, Cunning Brain, because he's a charge PG, and his ability to give plus 10,000 power after you bind for every Cunning Brain can help you hit over certain Vanguards and give massive power to Frog Raider, and it's just an all-around good PG. 4, Stride Fodder, because as you can see in the grade 3s, we have Jelly Beans, and if you use him to search out a Dudley, you have less grade 3s in your hand, so you want to try to maximize your odds to stride, which is different from before when we would have 3 Stride Fodder and a different amount of grade 3s. 3, Frog Raider, because he's arguably the most important grade 1, and he can help us hit over, and he's our finishing engine along with the different power boost structures that we have. And you want to try to keep him relatively available throughout the course of the game. And then 1, Fake Bomber, because he's not the focal point, but he's definitely a useful piece if you can't use he's useful if you can't use Hellhard 8, and you kind of want to have that option available to extend your Picaro and your Agrius turns. For your grade 2s, 3, Prompt Cheetah, because I find him to be one of the best Agrius pieces available, because if you call him out through Ryzen's Great Star, being able to attack for 14 to 21 and then have that unit available to bind with Agrius is really powerful, and then you can use it with the GB2 of Great Star. 3, Heebwees, because I find it to be another important piece because it can attack for 19,000 unboosted, which makes Agrius much more of a viable first stride option, just because you may not always have the booster available, and you can just attack for 19,000 unboosted to put that pressure on your opponent, and it gives you more liberty to pass your triggers elsewhere. 2, Mayhem Tiger, because Mayhem isn't as big of a focus point to help carry through the game, but you want to have it available to help push that 6 damage on your opponent if the need comes. And then 2, Razor Bruggert, just because it helps extend your Picaro and your Agrius turns if you don't achieve Hellhard 8 by second stride, which is the goal of the deck. And it attacks for 14,000 while charging, which makes 21,000 with 24,000 with Hellhard 8, which is good against like the Link Jokers and the Kagras of the world that can burn down the back row. And then we have, to bring up the rear, we have 1 Dudley Monty, which can be searched out with Jelly Beans here, just to give you that stride or ride consistency. For the grade 3s, we got 3 Ryzen Great Star, or 4 Ryzen Great Star, sorry. And I find him to be a much more viable Vanguard option than Ryzen Nova, so I just took Ryzen Nova out the deck, and the ride skill or the ride and play skill lets you search out a unit, which could be good for your Agrius turns, and it's good for comboing off with your Hellhard 8s or your Picaros and things like that. And then the GB2, just to help you recoup cards after you've attacked and put pressure on your opponent, is really good for us, just to help us dig for a heal trigger, a PG, stride fodder, etc. And then 4 Jelly Beans, who got a major buff through this set because the heal trigger is a Dudley Lindsay, which I inextricably forgot to talk about, but we got it. And it's just really good for being able to search out the heals, and it just comes back to you, so it could be used as a stride fodder into the future. Now let's talk about the stride zone a little bit. We got 4 Agrius here because its ability to be a viable first stride that scales into the latter portion of the game is really useful for us. It allows us to multi-attack early into the game, and then being able to get off those big attacks later in the game as well. 2 Miracle Ace, because it can help you finish out the game if you can't effectively use Hellhard 8, and if you're able to build up the soul over the course of the game from your Lindsay use, if you use it for the soul charge skill. Silence Joker, Schemer, all those different means, Brugger, etc., being able to throw out the course of the game. 1 Picaro, just because I would always recommend having at least 1 Picaro in your deck to be able to have a means to get around like the Narukami's, Kagros of the world, just that can kind of block us and try to slow down our progress. 1 Hellhard 8, of course, who is the main focal point of the deck. 1 Sea Breeze to be able to have a means to get the GB1 if your opponent tries to grade saw you. And then 7 G Guards, 3 of which are Linus, Big Linus here. 2 Hecaton Gus, the new guy that came out in the set, who was really good from my test to just be able to put cards back into your deck. 1 Agleam / Raktum to be able to filter. And then 1 Colburn, just to have that means if your opponent has a big hand. So that'll do it for the deck, and I just want to go through a couple different tweaks you can make to the deck after you get adjusted to it, or if you have the actual cards and the means to expand the deck itself. So the 2 changes I want to mention for the main deck is that you can take out a Mecha Trainer and replace it with a Mecha Analyzer. What this does is that it takes away your little bit of consistency away from getting your second stride 8, but it adds a much bigger oomph to your Picaro and your Agrius turns if you can't achieve 8 by second stride, or if you're facing a deck that kind of makes it not the best means to go at it for your second stride, such as like your Kagro or Narukami or something like that. And it combos really well with Razor Brugger here, just to be able to get you a nice attack extension. And another change you can make is by, if you remove the Bruggarts, you can add in a Mecha Trainer itself, and you can add another piece to either your Cheetah, your Heave-Weeze, or your Tiger. And what this does, that it just makes you more committed to your Hellhard 8, your Crazy 8 version of the deck, by making the 4 Mecha Trainer 4 Jelly Beans engine, just to give max consistency there. If you choose to go that route, maybe your local scene makes it more of a viable option. And then the tweak I want to mention for your stride deck is that you can take out the 2 Miracle Aces, and you can add 1 to Picaro, and then you can add in Heat Element Marindal, which is from Fighters Collection 2017 as well. And if you find yourself not using Miracle Ace at all in your testing, you can put more emphasis on your Picaro while adding in a free flip through Marindal, just in case you need to use up your Counter Blast for Mecha Trainers. So that'll do it for the sample list here. Hopefully you guys like this format and the explanation that I gave. This is more of a means, just like I mentioned before from the outset, just to help people have an idea of how to build the deck, with a couple of tweaks along the way, just to help you change out the deck along the way, should you choose to experiment with it. And then of course there's more things you can do with it as well. Those are just a couple things that I wanted to mention. So that'll do it for me. Hope you enjoyed this. If you like this, let me know if you want me to expand it to the other decks like I mentioned. And until next time, peace, be easy.